Ever wondered how people thought before clocks, before money, before ego became our identity? We often imagine that the ancient world was primitive, that their lives were hard, short, and full of superstition. But what if we're the ones who are lost? In this video, we'll take a journey into a world before the modern mind. A world where people didn't just survive, they understood something we've forgotten. A way of life that might not have had our technology but held something deeper, a sense of unity with nature, with others, and with themselves. Let's explore the forgotten philosophy of ancient human consciousness and ask, what did they know that we've lost? Modern life is structured by time. We live by the clock, wake up at 7, work from 9 to 5, eat by 8, sleep by 11. But for most of human history, there were no hours, no minutes. Time wasn't a number, it was a rhythm. It moved with the sun, the moon, the tides, the breath. Ancient tribes didn't rush, they moved with the seasons. There was no such thing as being late, because you couldn't be late to your own life. They didn't manage time, they flowed with it. This gave them something we've traded away: presence. They weren't watching the clock, they were watching the sky. Close your eyes for a second and ask yourself, who are you? If you forget your name, forget your job, your Instagram bio, your bank account, who's left? In many indigenous cultures, identity wasn't about achievement, it was about relation. You weren't just you were the daughter of the river, the brother of the wind, the voice of the ancestors. They didn't own nature, they belonged to it. To them, the self wasn't an island. It was a thread in the great net of existence. You were not the center of the world. You were a pattern in the dance. Think about how different that is from today. We build walls to separate ourselves, to feel important. But they saw meaning in being connected, not divided. In modern society, we avoid death. We hide it. We fear it. But for the ancient mind, death wasn't the end, it was transformation. In ancient Egyptian philosophy, death was simply a return, a movement from one phase of being to another. The soul continued, the story unfolded. Life and death were just different pages of the same book. And because death wasn't terrifying, life was more sacred. In many tribal societies, elders were revered because they were closer to death. They weren't avoided, they were honored because they stood at the threshold where mystery lived. How would our lives change if we saw death not as a shadow but as a doorway? Today, we see rituals as outdated, even silly. But for ancient people, rituals weren't superstition, they were reminders. Every drumbeat, every chant, every fire was a way to realign with the sacred. You didn't go to a temple to escape life. You entered ritual to remember who you were. Whether it was a Zen tea ceremony, a Vedic fire ritual, or a Sufi dance, the point wasn't to worship some external god. It was to wake up, to remember that you were a part of it all. Modern humans chase meaning in books and podcasts, but the ancient ones felt it, in the soil, in the stars, in silence. Today, knowledge means data, facts, files, answers. But the ancient world had a different kind of knowing. It wasn't just intellectual, it was intuitive. They listened to the wind, they watched the migration of animals, they felt the seasons changing, not with apps, but with their bones. To them, wisdom wasn't just in books, it was in dreams, in symbols, in stillness. This is why so many ancient myths don't make literal sense, because they weren't meant to be explained, they were meant to be experienced. They knew what we've forgotten. Not all truth fits into words. Now imagine, what if we took just 1% of that ancient mindset and brought it into our daily life? What if we stopped seeing nature as outside us and started seeing it as our own body? What if we stopped measuring time by clocks and started feeling it through moments? What if we remembered that death is not a failure, but part of a beautiful, terrifying, necessary cycle? What if we stopped trying to conquer the world and finally remembered how to belong to it? We live in a time of infinite knowledge and almost no wisdom. We've built machines that can think, but we've forgotten how to feel. Maybe, just maybe, the path forward isn't new. Maybe it's older than memory. Maybe the future of consciousness lies in remembering who we were before we forgot, before the noise, before the ego, before the clocks.